So anyway, we're talking about archetypes. And the movie Beauty and the Beast is a typical myth. In other words, there's all these problems, there's all these issues, somebody's in a quandary, somebody is had a curse on them, whatever it is, and all of a sudden, through a magical series of events, they come out on top. And those are what we call the myths. Joseph Campbell was great in talking about the myths. And the idea behind myths are that they are archetypes, or they are hidden subconscious stories about what's true for us. And so if you stop and think about it, how many stories about Cinderella are there? You talk about the prodigal son in the Bible. You go on and talk about all of the ugly duckling that became the beautiful swan. So we go on and on and on about these things that somehow magically somebody transformed into just a paragon of virtue. And if you really look at that whole thing, the idea repeats itself over and over and over again. So what I'd like to share with you is I believe that deep within us, we know what's true for us. Okay? And I want to get into the Bible, Holy Bible. It says Holy Bible. Okay? And this is again the Langston translation. But John 14:12. And I'm going to put my glasses on. We're still working on this belief structure, so it's okay. But 14:12 says, and you all know this, truly, truly, I say to you, who believes in me shall do the works I do. Now, the word believes in me means do what I told you to do. And Jesus talks about the spiritual path. He talks about going into your closet and closing the door and being quiet. He talks about walking in faith. He talks about doing things from a spiritual path, not the physical path. So maybe we should listen to him. So what I want to share with you is that I really believe very strongly that this idea of an archetype is so deeply embedded within us, we don't know it's there. And I'll give you an example. I looked it up. I had to go to the dictionary. Of course, it was a Google dictionary. But this is a definition, a scientific definition. And this is Jungian psychology, if you understand Carl Jung. And in that area, it's a collectively inherited unconscious, which means subconscious, okay, idea, pattern, or thought image universally present in the individual psyches. What that means is that we all have a subconscious pattern within us that repeats itself. And I really believe that we know we are a child of God deep within. In other words, there's that conviction deep in that I should be doing more, or I know that I am the child of God and I can express that. And somehow I'm stopping it or I'm blocking it. And so it's unconscious. We don't know it's there, but it makes us uncomfortable. I found myself, frankly, in tears. Now, this is professional counseling, okay? Discussing, being open with you, saying that at the time that, at the end of Beauty and the Beast, I was in tears. I'm even tearing up about it now. Why? Why did that occur? Anybody else? No, don't admit it, okay? But anytime a story comes out where somebody triumphs, Cinderella meets her prince, okay? The Beast transforms magically into the prince. What is the one? The apple? There's all these stories. What is it?
Snow White.
Snow White, yeah. So there's all these stories from time immemorial about overcoming and coming out on top and being the prince or the princess or whatever it is. So where does that come from? And I believe it comes from an inner belief that we are God expressing itself. And we want to do that, but we don't know how to do it. It's also one of the reasons I believe there's so much anger and upset in the universe right now. I've seen it, anybody else? And see, if I really believe that I am special and that I'm a child of God and I have the capabilities of overcoming my issues, and it's not happening, but I'm in the physical world and I believe the world is doing it to me, who do I have to fight back at? The world. So I have to project out and say, you're holding me back. So I have to become the victim, which is the conversation outside. No, it's not in here. But you see, we always have to blame somebody else. And so the ultimate is the idea of love, which is the energy we talk about from God. And Jesus says, basically, that anytime something comes up, express love. He talks about turning the other cheek. What does that mean? That means expressing love. So the energy of the universe is love. And when we don't experience love, we lash out and get angry because it's not happening at somebody outside of me. In other words, I've been with this, nothing personal. I've been with this in this relationship for 20 years, and she doesn't appreciate me. Okay, or my next, and I talk about next door neighbors. We make up all kinds of stories about things that happen, but within us is the capability to do those things that we're hoping to do. However, there's a different story. It's not somebody out there doing it. Where is it? Internally. So and it's amazing how things have been falling together this week. On Wednesday morning, the Course of Love, we looked at, and for those of you who don't know the Course of Love, this is the extension, theoretically, of the Course in Miracles. And we were discussing day 28 at the end, which is called the Dialogues. And it says, you can see this. You see this? It says somehow we need to go from externally to internally guided lives. I'll say that again. Somehow we need to go from externally to internally guided lives. Shall I say it again? Yeah. See, what I'm aware of is I don't get it. I really don't believe we get it. Because, how many people, I've been in Unity for 30 years. Yeah, my life's still not working. Okay? So here, the idea is going from externally guided to internally guided. Now, my definition for externally, and here is allowing the world to tell me what's good enough. And we're trained, as a child, we have to grow up in the wisdom of our culture. We have to know how to stop at stoplights, and we learn to drive and all those things. So what's acceptable behavior and what's unacceptable behavior? And the culture gives us that. And then we become oriented to what other people think of us and tell us. So we are at the whims of other people's opinions, and we are externally guided. It's like even the church building down there, okay? A lot of us have an idea what should be in there, and everybody has their opinions. Anybody familiar with opinions? Everybody knows what we're talking about. Because we're already, we should have a green roof, no, we should have a blue roof, no, we should have a metal roof. See, and there's all these things happening, and what the Spirit said. You understand what I'm saying? So there's an ultimate answer, but the answer is for each one of us individually. And I just happened to see Terry. I can't let Terry's conversation about me affect what I do. Now, is it wise to listen? Yes. But if you understand, I didn't pick on Terry. She's wise, anyway. I'm really getting this, that I personally have run my life on what other people think. Madeline and I obviously spent a lot of time in, what's happened, where am I, what am I doing, why am I here? Why in the world am I in Austin? Or Pflugerville, even in Pflugerville. And there's a whole series of events that have occurred for years and years and years. And who knows why I'm here? I'm here because of you. But the idea behind it was that externally or internally guided? And so who are we listening to is basic conversation. So there's this archetype, this metaphor, this inner knowing that we're a child of God, and as a child of God, I can literally run my life. Because if I'm an expression of God, then everything I'm involved in is similar to what God is. And God is a word person. Okay? God is all knowledge, and God is all power. So I have access to that because I'm a child of God. Okay? And it's a fascinating process. It really is. This goes on and talks about that there is only one God and you are a part of that God. And, Jesus says, ye are gods, and know ye not that ye are God. There's all kinds of conversation about that. But the first step in doing something about that, or unhooking from what other people are telling me, is to understand who I really am. Okay, so I am a child of God. Everybody do that. If you would, just do this on your chest. Connect both sides and say, I'm a child of God, if you feel comfortable doing that. I am a child of God. How's that feel? See, that's the truth about who you are. And when I voice that That's part of the affirmative process in life of saying who I am. So the title for today's conversation is, what are the keys to the superpowers? You see, if I can remember, and it was in my article this week, I can remember tying a sheet around my neck and running around the house like Superman. Okay? You too? It's funny. It's really funny because as kids, we do that. So that's number one, deciding, knowing who we are, and then reconnecting to the source of all that is. And that first step is meditation or reconnecting. Now, I'm a great believer in the silence of meditation. Unity teaches pretty much guided meditation, which is what Andrew did today. But the long-term change occurs when we make connection in the silence, which means we start spending maybe 20 minutes in the beginning in silence, once or twice a day, and then maybe if it feels comfortable, and we get used to it, extending that. So that's the first step, is reconnecting with who we are, because the world has us so confused with all this stuff. Anybody agree when you sit down and meditate, there's all this stuff in your mind? It goes nuts. It really does, because it doesn't want you to be silent, or the ego doesn't. And the world has to keep your attention and keep you focused on the problems. Do you ever notice when you try to slow down, it's all the problems that come in? Not the good things, it's the bad things. So it is. Because you say, oh, yeah, look at this. Oh my God, 30 years ago this happened. And I had an event that occurred, had to be 40 years ago when I was in silence this morning. It was like, where did that come from? Okay? Now, one of the keys we share with you is the Ho'oponopono, which is in your bulletin. And that is to start saying over and over again, I love you, divinity. I'm sorry that I had this thing come in. Please forgive me, or get rid of the pattern in my subconscious mind. And then thank you for doing that. Now, that's a psychological function. However, is it spiritual? Yes. Okay? So there's that step of reconnecting with spirit. Then the next step is spirit generally operates through feelings. How do I feel about things? That's where the heart comes in. That's what Sue was talking about, was reconnecting with the heart. And the heart, in connection with the mind, is the seat of imagination. Anybody agree that we can create imagination? In other words, you know, where does the idea of this Superman or Superwoman with a cape, it's imagination, and kids are great at imagination, okay? And I think I've shared this with you before, but I had a friend that asked the question, what happens to the dreams that you've had? Does the dream die or does the dreamer die? Good question, okay? So where do the dreams go that we had? I can remember thinking that, I can remember being going into college thinking if I could ever make $10,000 a year. Now that was 1959, 1960. So I date myself, but that was a dream back then, and that's been far surpassed. But the idea of the dream, where did it go? So I'm sure a lot of us in the room here now have had dreams. Someday I'm going to do this. Someday I'm going to do that. Someday I'm going to do that. We're going to build a church down there. Okay? And those are all dreams, and the connection with spirit is what starts solidifying those dreams into reality. So it's going back and reconnecting with spirit, and it takes time, and it takes work. It's not going to just fall out of the heaven and plop in your lap. So the meditation is part of the process, and then dreaming again. In other words, rekindle some of the dreams that we have been looking for. Okay? I don't know where I'm going with this, but it's amazing because I was thinking, I had dreams to travel the world, and yeah, I have. I've been blessed. I've been all over the English-speaking world, and but yet there's more to do, and I had stopped that. Okay, but anyway, so what are our dreams, and what do we rekindle? And the imagination is the connection with spirit. So number one, reconnect through meditation. Number two, start dreaming again, and believe the dreams are possible. Okay. And then the third part of it is, I want to double check to make sure I'm using the right word. Okay? It's right here. Intuition. You see, once we start dreaming and saying, this is what I want. So when I start dreaming or using imagination, I'm saying, Spirit, here's what I want. So Spirit then has to get back to you and give you a guidance on that process. And that's part of the intuition of a small voice. And biggest problem is trusting the voice. Okay? I'll say it again. Biggest problem is trusting the voice. Yes.
So intuition, that happened for me this morning, and it happened in a little bit different way. Rather than internally, I have this small group that meets at my house before church. Well, I have an idea for a prison. We're going in prison similar to what Pat is doing, except locally here. And I had two competing ideas about how it would work, and I shared both ideas in the group, and the intuition came back to me through the other people of like mind. Their intuition clarified for me that actually it's not one or the other, it's both and.
You can put them together. See, and it's learning to trust the intuition. This morning, I'll be open with you. I did not know Randy was going to be here, and I had the copy of the rendering. Some of you that have the renderings of the new building, and the copies of the rendering, I was going to run a copy, but I didn't do it. But I was told to. Now, and I walked in, and Randy hasn't been able to get to a computer. So would you agree I should have run that copy, taken the rendering, and given it to Randy? Okay, now who didn't listen? Robert.
Unless you'll come back to the home office.
You can come back. I'm going to trust me. I'm going to get to him one way or another. But do you understand that we don't trust it, and it's sometimes it takes feedback from other people. But you see, the three things are important to rekindle, and bring back into our lives. So do we have superpowers? See, the Bible, the Bhagavad Gita, every scripture that's written talks about how great we are. It also readdresses children of God, expression of God. It expresses that you are God expressing itself. So all the great histories, all the great mysteries, all the great religions of the world say that over and over and over again. And in the Christian religion, we have put up Jesus as the model, but Jesus said, what? These things I do, ye shall do, and even greater things. So do we believe him? Okay? And that becomes a trust issue. So here we are in this process, and congratulations, you're all super folks. In other words, those superpowers are there, but it's up to us to rekindle them and do the work that's necessary to bring them back into our life. Now, the problem with that, the word is ineffable, or unprovable, or in other words, you can't see it, you can't feel it, there's no way of knowing that what we're saying is true, unless you try it. Okay, so how come somebody is extremely wealthy and happy and somebody else is poor and broke? There's got to be a reason. And it's not outside of themselves, it's within themselves. So Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is within. So are we plumbing that kingdom of heaven? And so my encouragement today is let's get plumbing. Let's start digging down and doing the work. And I also believe if this group here, right here sitting, believes that that church is complete, it'll pop up all by itself. Now already it's going to have to do a lot of work on it. But see, that trust and that belief and who are you? And see, it says you're God's, you're children of God. And I keep saying this to myself over and over again when I have doubts. Anybody familiar with doubts? Mm-hmm. Oh my God, what? You know, you stop thinking about it. I was thinking about it the other day. And I'm going back on the building. I can actually see the building. You walk, I was talking this morning to Terry about the big picture window we're going to have at the edge of the sanctuary, so like a cry room. And I see it, I really do. And I was thinking, well, how are we going to arrange the chairs? Okay, well, we're going to do this. See, those are the beliefs. And if we all of us, there's enough power right here in this room to manifest that church. Okay? I believe that. But what do you want? And what part of it do you want? And how do you want your life to be? And over and over and over again, as a man thinketh in his heart, or as a human thinketh in his heart, so is he, so is she. So I guess I'm here encouraging myself. Remember, we have to take care of ourselves, but I'm also encouraging us. And Donald mentioned the support of the group. It's important that we all support each other, knowing that we're all children of God, and that we're all on the path and kind of encouraging each other. The way we're setting up the church, we've got this big gathering area in the middle of the church, and that's a place of community where we can come in. The bookstore's right off of it, so Cat has a bookstore, and we've still got those 3,000 or 4,000 books in the library. They're going to be right there, and we're going to have all these chairs here. And then over here is the big sanctuary. It's going to hold 150 people and a full meditation sanctuary. In other words, this is a place of peace. There's going to be, Tommy talks about, he's got a nursery guy set aside, 40 or 50 trees is what I heard. Okay, do you imagine what that's going to look like? And it's going to be a place. I think it was Sue mentioned this week, I didn't even think of this, that all the neighbors are going to walk their dogs, so they're going to have a pooper scooper station. You see, that's reality. Okay, that's like, oh yeah, man, there we are. Okay, so the idea behind that is that's what each of us can do for our own life. Okay, what do you want? Where do you want to go? I was thinking this week, I shouldn't admit this, but from time to time, I'm around people and I'll ask them, how you doing? What's going on? And a lot of people tell me, well, I'm getting older, I just don't feel well. Well, good. How old are you? Well, I'm 62. And it's like, you got to be kidding me. The age is 80, 90 in today's world, yes? Mm-hmm. At least 77 for me. Right? It's all here. It's all here. And it's like, okay, where are we going? What are we doing? And I really believe Pflugerville, Ronval, Cohutto, and this whole Northwestern area needs a good sanctuary church that can make a difference in lives. Amen. So I encourage us to become that sanctuary. I do have a final. I did want to go back on the ineffable. You see, I can't describe it to you. Okay? It's like the example I always use is how do you describe the taste of a banana to somebody that's never eaten a banana? And the only way to describe anything, it's like this. Like, anybody wants to know what something tastes like? Well, it tastes like chicken. You hear it over and over again. So we always need a comparison, but there's no comparison to the spiritual path. And the spiritual path is something we each take on our own. It requires the meditation. It requires dreaming again. In other words, get a wish list together, a bucket list, whatever it is. And then it takes listening to self. And if you need help getting in touch, give us a call. Because there are techniques, Madeline's good at it. Anyways, we've studied with some people that really help intuitional ideas. One of them is just imagine, ask your question, close your eyes and imagine a street light, red, yellow, or green, and you might get an answer. So there's a lot of techniques that we can share with you as you go. So having said that, welcome to the spiritual path. You notice I'm not saying it's easy. I'm saying it takes dedication, it takes commitment, and it takes persistence. And this group of people is in that process. We appreciate it. I love you. And we're building that church quickly.